Hello, I'm Tony White. This brief video is an introduction to my new book to be published later this year, titled Working with Drug and Alcohol Users. It's, I suppose, published, and the publisher is Jessica Kingsley Publishing, and it is kind of a second in a series, I guess, following on from my previous book titled Working with Suicidal Individuals. It's written in a very similar style, so if you have the previous book, you're going to know the style in which this book to be released later this year will have. In this book, there's a whole variety of material that's covered. I talk about, it's a transactional analysis approach, and I talk about the transactional analysis theory of addiction, and how one can use the theory of TA to propose a model of addictive behaviour. Other material that I look at is the different reasons for drug use. There is no one single reason for drug use. There's a whole variety of reasons, and in this book, of course, I'm referring not just to illegal drugs, but I certainly cover in detail alcohol and cigarettes for that matter, and prescription medications as well, mood-altering prescription medications. So people use the whole range of drugs for a variety of different reasons. You have the younger user, the teenage user, tends to use drugs as an experimental, for experimental reasons, just to find out what it's like to be under the influence of the drug. There's also the rebellious type of user, again often the teenager, but not always, who will use drugs and alcohol because they've been told not to. And then there's a recreational user, of course, which is by far the largest group of drug users of illicit and legal drugs. But of course they suffer very little negative problems and rarely present for drug counselling. So it's a bit of an odd situation. You have the largest group of drug users, recreational drug users, rarely presenting for drug counselling, whereas you have what I call the dependent drug user, who's the kind of addict type, who would be seen as the addict type person. They're quite a small group of the overall drug users, and they're the ones who often present in counselling for, use up most of the counselling resources for drug use problems. Regarding the dependent drug user, there are three possible solutions. In this book, I very much look at the relationship that the problem drug user has with the drug, I'm looking at, there are three possibilities for the dependent drug user. That is, the dependent drug user can switch the addiction. That is, they switch from being addicted to heroin, amphetamines, whatever it may be, alcohol, and switch to another. Some of those can be religious, can switch to a religious group or lifestyle and take that on in the same addictive type of way. I also would see that AA, or Alcoholics Anonymous, can fulfill this role as well. The way it's structured, and I look at this in some detail in the book, the way Alcoholics Anonymous is structured allows for this switching of addiction. Now, I'm not suggesting that that's a negative or a bad thing at all. I mean, if I was an alcoholic, I'd far prefer to be addicted to Alcoholics Anonymous than to alcohol. So that's one of the ways by which the very problematic dependent type drug user can stop being addicted to a drug. The second of the three ways is they grow out of it. That is, if you look at the statistics on drugs, the peak ages when most people are using are in their teens and 20s and maybe 30s, and then there is quite a rapid drop-off in the late 30s to 40s and particularly 50s. So people who are using drugs in a dependent type way can do so in their 20s and in their 30s, but then they burn out. The lifestyle of the dependent addict is simply too severe or too full on, the person burns out and they grow out of the drug use. And finally, there is the therapeutic solution, where basically the person switches the addiction from the drug to the counsellor or the therapist and works through the addictive behaviour in the relationship with the therapist. That, of course, takes time, which is unfortunate, sometimes many months to a number of years. But those are the three main solutions that one has to dependent drug use. And in the book I also cover other areas like harm minimisation. I look at motivational interviewing and present two different types of motivational interviewing that are done from the adult ego state and one from the child ego state. And then finally I have quite an extensive section on the teenage drug user, because they constitute a significant number of drug users who present for counselling. That is the teenager, and the teenager has quite a different psychology to the mature adult. So you have to look at teenage drug use as a separate case to the mature adult type of drug use. So that's some of the points in the book, and of course there is many other many others as well. So if you buy the book, I hope you find it useful. Thank you for your time.